Welcome to the Enter the Mind podcast.
The most real talk, no nonsense podcast on the empowering of the mind.
Why enter the mind? Because it's that room in your house that's been there all along that you've never gone into.
Well, now it's time to enter with two mind coaches dedicated to self-help and the thriving of all human beings.
I'm Kyra Carlin.
And I'm Robert Nelson.
Welcome to Enter the Mind.
In this week's episode, we'll be talking about taking things personally. Before we get to that, Kyra, how's it going this week?
It's going really good so far. I'm having breakthrough after breakthrough and just download after download. So I'm pretty lit. What about you? How are you on your end?
I like the sound of that. I would say similar. Every day is a new insight, and caffeine helps. So this is what I'm drinking today. Good old yerba mate. And I'm ready to go. So can you intro the topic for us? What made you think about this topic of taking things personally?
Well, somebody said to me the other day, "You seem like you don't take things personally." I was like, really? Wow, thanks. Because it's something that I've really been working on. So I used to take everything personally when I was little. And that just, that never did anything for anyone. So I just figured that we would talk about the topic of taking things personally. Like, why should you take things personally when it's not your fault? When it's whoever somebody is however they're going to take something about you or believe about you. Most of the time it has nothing to do with you. So I wanted to leap in on that. Do you have any thoughts so far? Did anything pop up?
Yeah, I've had a few thoughts. I encountered it a lot as a case manager in mental health, working for many years in that. It was particularly intensive mental health, working with sort of the most unstable population you can think of, because it would not be very uncommon to come into the office Monday morning and you have a voicemail or two just totally chewing you out, saying, you never helped me and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can imagine sort of maybe disgruntled homeless people or things that's like, well, if this is how you treat people, I mean, you're going to be in that condition for the rest of your life, no job, no money. No, it's true though. I mean, it's like you have to be able to respect people, right? But then there's the whole side of, do I take it personally, right? Especially with certain comments that they might say, oh, I thought you were a great caseworker until blah, 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 or, just very manipulative, passive aggressive comments, things like that. And that was a huge practice for me of not taking it personally. And it's like, and then after you listen to that voicemail, it's like, then there's another voicemail from them that's more recent that says, oh, and can you help me tomorrow to blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, okay, do I even want to help this person? Because after what they said. And, but that's why I wrote that book called Skilled Compassion. It's about managing your mind when helping. Yeah, I wrote a book you don't know about. It's called Skilled Compassion. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
But so when you talk about taking things personally, I think that's probably the experience I think of most. There's definitely experiences in my personal life, like my non-work life, where it comes up. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. What about you? What circumstances, I guess you've overcome it based on that whatever your friend told you recently, but maybe in the past, do you remember what used to cause you to take things personally?
I do. And I also wanted to say fuck yeah to your book, because I have known you for about a year now. I don't know if it's February. I don't know what day in February we met, but it's probably been about a year. And I never knew that you wrote a book. So that's fucking amazing. And when I get the chance, I'd love to read it because you are a genius. Anyways, so
Thank you.
okay, so circumstances that I guess caused me to take things personally, I think it all comes with insecurity about yourself, and also caring too much about what people think about you. Because it's like, you know, say a guy doesn't like me, you know, I'm over here hitting on a guy in the club and he's like, bitch, please. And he's an extremely good looking man, right? But he doesn't want me. I could take that personally, right? And I could be like, I'm not beautiful enough. He doesn't want none of this, you know, right? I could do that, but it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm a beautiful woman. I'm extremely smart. I have a great personality. I know I'm lovable. I love myself. And if this man doesn't like me, that's not, you know, that has nothing to do with me. And it has everything to do with him and the type of woman that he likes, or the stage that he's at in his life. You know, so if you go around taking everything personally, then, oh God, I just feel like that would be such a horrible life. It would diminish your self-confidence, I think, on a daily basis. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be a nightmare. I think it'd be a negativity spiral that would just, it would spiral, because you would start to have a negative opinion of yourself, which would cause you to act a certain way, which would cause other people to treat you a certain way, which then would reinforce your negative self-image. So it would spiral. But yeah, it's, I think, well, that's a good example. So like, you're in the club, you're hitting on some really good looking guy or whatever. I mean, there could be so many reasons why, so many reasons to explain his behavior, right? And I've encountered similar, I can identify with that because of my endeavors into the dating world, you know, from the male perspective, right? It's like, I can identify with that situation. So the interesting thing though, is that at what point do you then derive feedback from that, right? So let's say one guy, you know, kind of just shrugs you off or whatever, and like, you don't want to take it personally, right? But at what point, when it happens, let's just say hypothetically, okay, let's make up a scenario, because this wouldn't happen to you or me, but let's say you do it 100 times and 100 people give you that same sort of response, like a cold shoulder or something, right? You kind of have to start asking, like, okay, am I doing something a little uncalibrated here? A little bit, am I doing something a little bit off, right? And I think because people get carried away with the advice of, you know, oh, just do you, don't care what other people think. Like, there's some truth to that, but there's also a importance of like being aware of the environment, being aware of the effect that you're causing in other people. You see what I mean? We have to figure out how we're going to balance both of those things.
So I completely agree. You know, I was actually, this has been something that comes up for me like a lot lately. It's like, you know, don't take things personally by all means, but you know, even before 100 guys, you know, say it's like 20 guys in a goddamn row, and each one is like, bitch, please. You know, at that point, you probably got to think, is there something wrong with the way I'm going up to them? You know, like you have to dive into yourself and actually see what your action roots from when you go up to them. You know, is it like, is your action rooting from, you know, a thought like, I am ugly and I am unworthy, so I'm going to go up to this guy in some sort of weird way and pretend that I'm being charming, so maybe he'll like me. You know, that's probably not going to work. You know, when you're rooting from a specific thought or a specific belief, and then you act on that rooted belief or thought, and it's not a beneficial belief or thought, then chances are you're going to come out as something that people don't want to be around. And you know that you can feel that in yourself because you can feel the resistance within your skin and within your bones and within your energy. You can feel that resistance. So I guess it just depends on how many times you want to deny it before you check yourself, before you wreck yourself.
I was hoping that you finished with that statement. I was like, yes, come on. And then you said it. I was like, boom, wreck yourself. I think those are really good points about resistance. This came up in last week's episode. You brought up the idea of resistance, so I want to make sure I'm understanding it right. So if you could either restate or give an example. I just want to make sure I cue in again before I respond.
There are times when my money fluctuates, and sometimes I don't have that much money, and it doesn't make me feel good because I love having the money to do the things that I want to. I don't want to have to depend on anybody. I like having my own money, right? So when I go out and I do have money, I'm like, I'm free as a bird. I'm like, I'm gonna go over and talk to this person who's wearing $1 million coat. Be like, what up, homie? How you doing? I'm a mind coach. You know, right? But even then, there was a little bit of resistance because I didn't say it exactly how it would come out of my mouth. But when I don't have that much money, I feel a little bit less secure with myself because, you know, I'm at a certain age. I believe that I should have a certain amount of money in my bank. That's what I think that's like a soul thing. But so there would be resistance when I go up to somebody and I'm like, hi, I'm Kyra Carlin, you know, but it's more like, hi, I'm Kyra Carlin. And you can feel the resistance within yourself, and you can feel that there's a resistance in the connection because you don't entirely feel good about yourself right now. So that resistance is coming off, and you know it. Like, you know when you're kind of off and you have that kind of off feeling. So that's the resistance that I'm speaking of. And then I guess the root belief would be like, oh, I don't feel good right now, but I'm still going to try, but it's most likely not going to work. Right. But so then you're rooting from that, and then they can feel your resistance and you can feel the resistance. And I hope that you got that. That's the best that I can explain it.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. This topic is almost turning into a topic on social dynamics, I feel, because it's just so similar to a lot of the coaching, or I would say a good bulk of the coaching that I've done with my clients in the Existence First business, right? Is actually social dynamics, and with young men, and sort of gaining confidence in the dating world, right? And going out and meeting women and things like that. And you're so right that, like, if there's some resistance inside of you to talking to a person, that person can feel it. Like, you can be, people can feel others' energy, and there's almost like an incongruence, or there's almost like a hesitation. And it's not to say that as long as there's any ounce of hesitation, then the interaction will go poorly, because that's not true. You can but it might affect your ratios, right? So if you go talk to 10 girls, or if you're a girl and you talk to 10 guys, if you have a lot of hesitation, then maybe 3 out of those 10 would give you like the time of day and would like hear you out and sort of see what you're about and be curious and patient. But that's not the majority. But if you're like more congruent, right, and if you don't have that resistance in you and you're coming from like a pure mindset or whatever, then maybe 7 out of those 10 would kind of respond well to you, right? So then when I think in terms of that cause and effect sort of way, like the whole question of taking things personally just doesn't even exist anymore, because now it's this thing of like, okay, well, what were you expressing? How were you expressing it? And then that was causing a reaction in the other person. And it's this like give and take versus them judging you as like a good, as worthy or unworthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I feel like if you're sort of coming from that insecure place, then you would be taking it as worthy or unworthy and labeling yourself as that due to somebody else, due to an outside circumstance. But what I really wanted to make a point of is I think I've said this on one of our podcast episodes before, but I get angry sometimes and I get pissed as fuck. And like, I remember this one time I went into a gas station and my fucking card wasn't working. And it was the second gas station I went into. And I went into the second gas station because I was like, fine, I'll just fucking pay inside. And there was a long line, and there was only one cash register open. And I was talking to myself in the place and I'm like, this fucking gas station, like, fuck your gas station. What? You don't know how to run a gas station? You know, so I'm pissed. And yes, that does happen to me sometimes because it pisses me the fuck off. Should they take that personally? No. I am angry. I'm pissed off and I'm saying a bunch of shit. It is not even directed towards you. It is more just directed towards the way that this situation is happening at this exact moment when I'm pissed off, you know, or when I am driving down the street and a car is going extremely mega slow. And I'm like, bitch, what are you jerking off? Hurry the fuck up. I've got places to be, you know, so I'll pass them. And I'll pass the fuck out of them. And sometimes people will look out their window at me and be like, and I'm like, don't take it personal, bro. It's me. It's my preferences in life. It has nothing to do with you. It's just me. I don't want to wait behind a slow ass car, you know? And if you feel insecure about that, but okay, so then let's go the other way around, right? So if I was in a good mood and that car was going slow in front of me, I would have no problem. Go slow, bro. I'm jerking off. I'm having a great time. So you don't have to, you know, do anything, right? So that person, if they were to get mad at me for passing them, they would be taking that outside circumstance into their own aura, right? So it's like, oh, if somebody passes me, I'm slow. But if somebody doesn't pass me, I'm not slow, right? So you're basing your beliefs about yourself on somebody else and on outside circumstances. And it's like, if I'm in a really good mood and somebody skirts past me, I'm like, oh, must have been going slow. Like, sorry, you know, like my bad, you know, right? But then if I'm in a bad mood and somebody passes me, I'm like, bitch, what, you want to race? What? You don't got time? You know, so, you know, taking things personally is just a whole nother level of complete insanity, truthfully, because you're basing everything on outside circumstances.
Wow, that's pure gold right there. Which you,
right? I love that. Thank you.
It's so true, so dependent on your mood. I mean, that's what you described about being passed on the road. In a good mood versus in a bad mood, that like exactly describes my experiences, you know? It's so interesting that then, so now this is causing me to think differently about I feel like I'm widening my perspective or my awareness of this concept of taking things personally, because it's more of like, if I'm starting to take something personally, it's, as we all know, it's, you know, it says more about you than it does about the other person, right? If you're reacting a certain way or whatever, or their actions say more about them, you know, if they're saying something critical, it says more about them than it does about you. Like they're probably having a bad day. But then your reaction to their criticism says more about you than it does about their criticism. It says more about whether your mind is in an upward spiral or a downward spiral at that moment. And that, to me, that's the hidden blessing, I guess, not blessing, but the hidden treasure it's a barometer for your own. It's like a signal. Like, so if you take something personally, it's like a red flag of like, okay, check if you're in a negativity spiral right now, because you better get yourself out of it.
Yeah, 100%. That moment when you got to kind of check yourself to see if it actually is you, right? Because, you know, I'm trying to think of a situation like, so I don't talk to my family much. I sometimes talk to my dad, and, you know, I'm trying to get closer with them, but I don't talk to my mom at all, just because, you know, it's not somebody that is supposed to be aligned with me in this lifetime, at this moment, forever. I don't know. But some people would see that as a red flag, right? So I have a friend, and he didn't tell me, but his friend told me that he was shunned by his family because he parties a lot and everything. And I'm like, honestly, that's kind of sad, because, you know, just because you party, it doesn't mean that you're not a good person inside. So that's kind of fucked up for shunning somebody for just living their life, you know, right? I can understand if he was like a murderer or a rapist. Go ahead, shun him, you know, but it's like he's just partying, you know? So I was talking to my friend about it, and she was like, yeah, but sometimes that can be seen as a red flag, because she dated somebody who was shunned by his family and didn't talk to his family, right? So it's like, there comes a point when you have to ask yourself, is it the person? Is it you, and like not the family part? Like, is it that person? Are they shunned by other people in their life? Do they not have friends for some long amount of time? I think that then that you have to ask yourself, is it me? You know, so it's like, if other people stopped talking to me, or if I stopped talking to other people, but I'm just going along my life and I'm like, I don't need them in this lifetime. Maybe now, maybe forever, you know, and I'm just walking through this life, letting go and pushing away everyone that I love. At some point, I should probably do a gut check. Is it me, or is it just that person? You know, so I think that there comes a point when, yeah, you really have to ask yourself, is it me, or is it the people that I'm choosing, or is it the people that are around me? Once again, I hope that I explained that right.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to be along the same lines as what I was mentioning earlier about how to find. Well, let's see. Let's try to put the two together, because on the one hand, we don't want to take things personally, like unnecessarily.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we want to be vigilant and aware of our interactions in a way that we get the feedback that we need to get. Now, I think that the spot in the middle or above, like the higher point, the higher perspective, you know, in contrast to the two lower perspectives, would be that we, like, when you see things in terms of like cause and effect, I feel like there's no more room to take them personally, I guess. It would be like, what's an example? Like if I were to use the caseworker example when I was working as a caseworker, right? If a client responded a certain way, like very negatively, I could ask myself, what did I do or say that they interpreted a certain way that caused them to respond so negatively? Right? It's not always just this blanket, like, well, I have nothing to do in this picture. They had an outburst and that's just totally them. They're completely, in their own world, blah, blah, blah. It's not always that case. Sometimes you do something that kind of sets them off, but it's just that either that person has a lower frustration threshold or a lower frustration tolerance, and so they act out more than other people do, or you said something that triggered them that, it's if you said it to 100 other people, not many of them would be triggered, but but with one specific person,
Yes.
you struck a chord. So there's lots of, to me, there's lots of like inspection that can be done to kind of be aware of like, what's that dynamic going on and what part did you play in that interaction? But nowhere in there is there room to kind of take it personally. I feel like that's almost a whole different room in the house, is this whole, that it's the other room of like, oh, is the world going to accept me? Am I okay? Am I not okay? Like, and to me, it's just a completely different mindset. What do you think?
I completely agree, because there is that moment when you should ask yourself, like, was it something that I did? And I think that you should most likely ask that almost after, like, every time that you may be taking something personally. Like if you're going 5 miles an hour on the highway and somebody beeps at you, well, yeah, was it something I did? Yeah, you're going 5 miles an hour, bro. But it's then it comes down to like you talking to a friend and you're like, hey, I really don't like when you do this to me, blah blah blah, right? And they're like, well, what do you mean you don't like that? Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I just mean that I don't really like the way that you treat me, So that conversation, doesn't go well entirely and it ends, right? So then you can ask yourself, like, did I do anything wrong? Was I judgmental when I was saying it? Was I accusational when I was saying it? Was my energy too strong that gave them no space to feel comfortable at all? And then if you check yes, like to all those answers, or no, or whatever, like you didn't do any of those things and you really came from a place of pure space, then no, don't take it personally. It's just that person. They are a little bit insecure and they're a little bit defensive, and that's not their identity. It's just a little trait that they have, and they can 100% work through it. So, don't label them as that. They just may have been having a bad day or something, right? But then on the other hand, you could, maybe check yes to one of those things, like, oh, like I did kind of come off a little bit accusational. And then I guess the next step is to just go through time, try it again, get it right, and continue to gather evidence from that. Like, it's like the whole 50 guys things, like going up to 50 guys. Like, okay, well, in that time of going up to 50 different guys, it takes time. If you go up to 50 guys in a night, I mean, that's great. No, right? But it takes time. So during all that time, you have to watch yourself and you have to check yourself And you have to see if it was anything that you did. And then if it was something that you did, you have to wait for time again, go and try it again, see what happens that time. And once again, repeat the process. So you can see if, is it me or is it the people that I am attracting? Or is it just that person was having a bad day? You need time and trial and error to see whether you're coming off as a jackass or you're coming off pure-hearted.
Wow, that's a lot of good stuff. And you opened multiple threads there, I think. Oh, I don't know. Now my mind doesn't know which one to respond to. So there's a lot of good ideas. So looking at the time, I think we should wrap up. So let's give some sort of like final thoughts here. My reflections for today, it seems like we started with this theme of taking things personally, and three or four other themes kind of came up because we realized that the taking things personally is a piece of a larger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that larger picture is, you used a good phrase in the last few minutes. You said gathering evidence. Mm-hmm. So one piece is sort of this objective view of reality of like feedback, right? Like, okay, well, I'm getting these reactions from people. Is there something I'm doing, right? Then, so that's one piece of it, is like, how do we go about getting the feedback? Then there's also this piece of sort of your own inner resistance when you're communicating, your own congruence. Like, are you coming from the heart, or are you really speaking from a position of self-doubt in the first place? But to wrap up, from my perspective, I feel like we've looked at this from many different angles, which is good. I feel like we've accomplished what we set out to do, because the picture looks a lot more clear to me. It's like, I feel like I understand it a lot more. I see it from different perspectives. And it's not a simple, that's how I know I think we've done our job, is that it's no longer this simple, like, oh, you shouldn't take anything personally, like this black and white simplified self-help concept. I feel like we've looked into the machinery of it, and we've kind of fleshed out a lot of really important points about how the mind works. So that's sort of my take on it. But what are your thoughts on what we discussed today?
I loved it. I think that it was a great topic. I think that we flowed really nicely with it, and a lot of ideas being bonged off of each one. And that's what personally I love to do. I love to break things down and tell people the mechanics of it, because the machinery, I liked that word that you used, the machinery of it, because, okay, don't take things personal. Well, what the fuck does that mean? How do I not take things personal? People don't like to go into depth and explain things to people. They like to keep it simple, which is great, because simplicity is the best. But give them the simple version and give them the in-depth version, so they can understand the depths of it for it to become simplified. There's like a whole little, there's machinery there. There's a assembly line there that you need to go through in order to arrive at that simplicity state of energy, frequency. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for listening. As usual, follow me on Instagram at @trytragedy. I'm now doing 90-minute intensive calls. So yeah, hop on that train, that assembly line.
Right on. And my Instagram is @existence first. Feel free to message me on there or on Facebook. I'm still finishing up a long stint of doing daily videos on YouTube, so make sure you check those out. The channel is called Existence first. A lot of good mental trainings and very short, sometimes 1 or 2 minute videos on techniques to control the mind. So very good. I think we did it, and I look forward to the next one. Write any in the comments, write any suggested topics for future episodes, and we'll see you next week.